Here we are. Hello, Joe. And
Okay.
welcome everybody to this LinkedIn live stream on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on YouTube as well. I'm joined today by the lovely and very talented Joe Green, who is a career change coach. And for those of you who know me, I'm a career coach, career transition coach as well. And I just thought today we're going to be talking about some very important things with regard to career change. But before we do, let's do some introductions so that you know who we are. Okay, so I'm Jane Jackson. I'm a career management coach and the author of Navigating Career Crossroads and the founder of the Career Success Program and host of Your Career podcast. And my mission in life is to make careers guidance accessible to everybody who needs it or wants it, so that you can create a career that's satisfying and rewarding and fulfilling too. And over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Jane. It's great to be with you today. I'm Joe Green. I'm a career change coach. This is my fourth career being this, so I'm well versed in the land of career change and what it's like to personally do that. And 8 years ago, I retrained as a coach, and I've got some advanced qualifications from the UK specifically around career change coaching. So I love helping people who are stuck in their career and don't know what to do next to figure out their next move. So looking forward to chatting with you, Jane, today and sharing some tips on career change.
Yeah, that's right. And Joe is the ultimate career changer, having made some big career changes from location-wise, London to Sydney, where I first met you back in 2009. How quickly the years go by. And
Yes.
She was looking for greater meaning and made a big transition, which I'll let you talk about. But then from one transition to the next transition and a third transition before discovering your true passion and direction, which is career coaching. And so the world needs more career coaches. It's wonderful. And you'll find, because most career coaches are very warm and fuzzy, that's all I am, warm and fuzzy career coach who likes to get results, you find that collaborating with other coaches is one of the most enjoyable things because we share common values. And I think being on the same mission is really, really important when you're thinking about career change as well. What would you
Definitely. And I know, Jane, when I first met you, you were always so generous in sharing your advice, and particularly when I was thinking about becoming a coach and sharing your advice and tips on how to go about that journey. So yeah, wonderful to come full circle and both be coaches sitting down chatting today.
I know, and we can talk about careers all day long, but we've got limited time.
Yes.
So we'll get on with it. Oh, just to let you know as well, this will be a podcast episode on Your Career Podcast. So if you want to listen to it again, you'll be able to find it there. So what we're going to be covering today are three main things. One is, what are the barriers to career change? The second thing that we're going to be talking about are the biggest mistakes that people make when considering or making a career change, and tips on what to do when you're exploring career change as well. Okay, so those are the main things. And what I'd like to do is just change. We've got a banner here that says welcome and where are you watching from. If you happen to be watching live, do pop in the comments where you're actually listening or watching from. For those of you who are watching the replay, please feel free to pop in the comments any questions as well, and also where you're watching from, because it's always interesting to know. Okay, and so let's kick this off with barriers to career change, Joe. Let's hear from you, because you've made so many interesting career changes. And what's gone through your head with all of this?
Oh gosh, I think one of the biggest ones I hear from my clients, and that I definitely experience myself, are all the fears that come up with career change. I think that's the one that first comes to people's mind. The fear of getting into a career that isn't right once you get into it, the fear of failure that can come with that, fears around money, around job security, fear of what other people might think, and then fears around sort of confidence around skills and abilities and what might be possible, I think, come up for people, which is so natural because career change is such a big thing. We're thinking about changing a big thing in our lives, and our brains are ultimately trying to keep us safe. And so all those fears tend to be the first thing that flood into people's minds when they first start to think about making a career change. So that's one of the big things I really see lots of my clients come to me with. What about you, Jane? What are some of the big barriers you see?
What I found is there's something which I call like identity lock-in, where if you've been in a profession for a long time, you tend to identify with being a certain profession. You know, you're the marketing person, or you're the strategic leader, or you're in pharmaceuticals, or whatever it is, we tend to label ourselves, and then we start to identify as this is who we are. And if we're not this person, who are we really? And that creates a little bit of fear when people are thinking about making a change, because they just think, oh, well, what else could I do? I've spent so many years training to be a lawyer, for example. And, you know, there's the sunk cost when you've spent so much time, money, effort in becoming qualified. And then if you change out of that, is an element of guilt as well, because a lot of my clients, that when I was working, especially in Singapore, being dutiful children as well, sometimes parents, you know, have a fair amount to say about what they expect their children to be: doctors, lawyers, dentists, financiers, whatever it is. And then if they're making a change, they don't want to disappoint anybody else. And so that can be a barrier to actually making that huge leap. So that's something that I've found with a number of people that I've worked with, who just want to make a change, but they don't want to. There's the fear of failure, of course. That's one thing. It's like, can I actually do this? And, you know, will I be a disappointment to myself if it doesn't work? But the other one is, will I be disappointing other people when they've got certain expectations of me? So a lot goes on in people's minds, don't you think, Jo?
Absolutely. I really see that, particularly with the people who spent a lot of time and money and effort in careers like engineering and lawyers and people like that sense of identity and what they're going to go through, and the grief that can come with that as well, of thinking about all that's happened in the past and moving forwards and what next. I think for a lot of people that ties into that is the lack of knowledge that can be a barrier. I've got all these skills and experience in whatever they've been working in, but what else could I do with that? And 100 years ago, we could have written down all the careers there were on a piece of paper, but now I think there's probably a new different job role created every single day. Like, it's absolutely huge. It can be really overwhelming to think, well, I know I could do these things and I know I want to do this sort of stuff, but where else could I use those skills and that knowledge and that experience in a different way? And you'll see lots of people getting stuck with that.
Yeah, and identifying what the job title is, because, you know, there are so many different job titles now, and what do they really mean? In one of my clients where I do some work, I'm called an executive consultant. What does that mean? Absolutely nothing. Okay, an executive consultant. I mean, if it's a career coach or a facilitator or a trainer, or if you're learning and development manager, that makes sense. But if it's something that's a little bit vague, then it's very hard to be able to really identify where you want to go. Just want to mention, Jo, we've got some nice people who are saying hello. There's Daniel Young and Sue Elson. Hello, Sue, who's having a sunny day in Melbourne. Ali is from Narm, Vietnam. Is that what you mean? Ashley Wong's from Sydney. Alison's from Sydney. Dale is from the South Coast, New South Wales, and Robin is also from sunny Melbourne. So that's lovely. It's sunny Sydney at the moment too. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us, everybody. And we're talking about barriers to career change today. So if you've just joined us, that's what we're going to be focusing on. And feel free to ask any questions as well. And what I want to do just while we're having a chat is to put up here, if I'm putting a ticker there, okay? So if you're interested in connecting with either Jo or myself, that on the scroll on the ticker at the bottom, it's got both of our websites, so you can go and have a little bit of a whiz around there and have a look too, okay? So let's now talk about big mistakes. When people finally think, okay, I'm going to let go of this identity, I'm going to stop worrying about whether I can do this, make this change or not, and they actually take that leap into making a career change. What would you say are the biggest mistakes that you've noticed that people make when making a career change, Jo?
I think one of the ones I see often is that people try to change career on their own, and they try to change career with the information that's in their head. And they think, if I just sit here for long enough and crunch all the information in my head, I'm going to have this moment and ping, here the career change is going to come. And I think that actually the answers to the career change is out there in the world for people, and actually engaging with other people, whether that's for support as you're going through all the fears and things we just mentioned, Jane, and all the emotional stuff that can come up in career change, but also to get information about what are the different careers out there that might be right, and what are people actually doing in those careers? How are they spending their time? What are they doing all day? What skills are they using? And all the many things you need to understand to actually figure out whether something's going to be right for you. So I think doing careers on your own is a big thing, a big mistake that lots of people make. Another one I think that comes up quite often in the first conversations I have with people is people often say to me, I'm going to need to study. I'm going to need to go back to university and do some study or some other qualifications. And I kind of explain that people are starting to think with the how before they've figured out the what. Really, you need to work out what you want to do for your career and then find out how you're going to make the steps to get there. Because for some careers, the assumption might be that you need to go back to university or you need to study to make that career change. Or just because you're changing career, you might assume that's the case. When actually, when you go and speak to people in those careers, you might find out that you don't need to. Or you could do qualifications and training on the job rather than doing it before. And so actually focusing on what first can be a really good way of approaching it a bit differently. What about you, Jane? What are some big mistakes you see people going through?
I always think that it's important. I mean, everything you've said is 100% right. You've got to have information before you make any decisions. But also you need to ask yourself, why do you want to make a career change? I think a big mistake is to make a change because you're not happy about something, okay, rather than knowing what it is that you want to do next. Because if it's a push away from what you've got at the moment, and it could be toxic work culture or too much work, or you're feeling burnt out, or you don't like your boss, or it could be so many different things that you're just disgruntled about or not happy about in your current work environment. So you want to escape, and you think that what you want is a career change when actually you need to be out of a specific environment. That's something that you really need to think about as well. So identifying what the push factor is when you're in your career and you're feeling unhappy. The easy thing is to think, oh, I need a different job, then everything will be fixed. But it could be that you're with people with whom you don't share your values, or maybe there's a boss that's over demanding. Maybe it's the toxic work culture. Maybe there's a bully who's making you feel unhappy. There are lots of different things that could be happening. So think about whether you're making a change because it's a push, or if there is something that's pulling you. Now, this is really interesting because remember back in 2009, Joe, and we were working together, and you were in market research, and it didn't feel that satisfying. It was fine, earned you money, and that was all good, but there was something that was kind of missing, and that there was a pull for you. So you weren't running away, you were being pulled towards something. And that was to do more meaningful work, which led you to the not-for-profit sector. Yeah. And that was the right move for you because your career anchor is probably, much like mine, dedication to a cause or service, needing to make a big difference. So I think if you think what's pulling you, identify your career anchor and think, is that truly pulling me in a certain direction? Then you'll be able to make that change knowing that it's the right thing for you and you're not really running away.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think it's is it the job or is it the career? And for some people, they've moved from one job to another job to another job in the same career area. And that's when they realize, actually, it's something about the career that's not right. And that's what's kind of leading them to realize, actually, it's the career change that's needed, because it's not changing if I'm changing jobs. It's got to be a bigger thing that changes. But I love that sense of pull. How much more exciting is it to pull towards something than just to be pushed out of it for now?
Yeah, that's right. Because I mean, it's so many different things, because it could be, what about the industry? What about the job function? What about the people? What about the location as well? Oh, I had one client who really liked nice air-conditioned offices. Okay, like state-of-the-art air-conditioned offices. And they went for this job interview with this company where they had to walk through like a market area. And so, yes, it was retail and it was food and all of that. But it was, I didn't like climbing over the cabbages, in order to get to the office. And I thought, oh, okay, I see. And I had another client who was not happy because she didn't have a view of the Harbour Bridge. She had moved from Adelaide to Sydney, and the dream was office overlooking the Harbour Bridge. And she had a very nice corporate office, but it didn't overlook the Harbour Bridge. Then there was a redundancy, and it was, she didn't want to go home to look for another job. She wanted another job in Sydney because she goes, I will have failed myself if I don't get that one dream.
Oh,
And
wow.
understanding, but she kept self-sabotaging herself, because deep down, when going through all the layers of coaching and peeling it all back, what she really wanted was to go back home, because she missed her friends, her family, and she found Sydney difficult as an adult to make close friends when she first moved. But because she had that fixation on Harbour Bridge, beautiful view, wonderful office, and if I don't get that, I'm going to be a failure. It's sometimes people get fixated on stuff, and you've got to realize what really are your true motivators. And here's an interesting.
It's so fascinating unpacking that, isn't it, with somebody and seeing that what seemed on the surface that it was about the Harbour Bridge and having that view, it wasn't. It was something else that actually wasn't for her.
It was actually about loneliness. And what was interesting was she went to these all these interviews and kept not getting. She was perfectly qualified, but I think she was self-sabotaging. But then when she went back to Adelaide, and I said, take a break, you need to clear your head. She went back to Adelaide and she was applying for jobs down there. I said, you may as well, while you're there. And she found a job that she thought, oh, this sounds pretty good. She got the job offer right away, negotiated, and she goes, Jane, I think I'm not coming back to Sydney. I went, you have let go of what, was a dream for a while, but it really wasn't the important thing. So you've got to think, what's the most important thing for me and for my happiness, and focus on the most important thing rather than all the other stuff that might just be peripheral. I see in the comments here that Sue Elson, Sue, thank you for your comment there. Culture or task? Exactly. Is it a job function that you're hankering after, or is it a certain environment that you're hankering after too? What I'd like to do now is, because we'll tap into your expertise, Jo, is what tips can we provide to people who are thinking about making a career change? Okay. So what would you recommend? Someone's come to you and they think, I need to make a career change and I just don't know where to start. What would your top tips be?
The first one would be to follow your curiosity. So something I think is really important is looking at all the things that you're drawn to in the world. When we actually realize that it's very individual, all the things that spark interest to each of us. And if you pay attention to that and see what those sparks are. So maybe you realize, if you look at all the people that you follow on social media and you get really excited when you see a new post from them, and actually they're all in a particular space. They're all talking about health or something. Or you realize that you go down a rabbit hole often if you see something about sustainability and you kind of think, oh gosh, I just want to read more about that. By following your curiosity in those spaces, you can just find out more about why it is that you're drawn to those and what might be happening in those spaces. The next tip would then be to not get lost down a Google rabbit hole, which is what another big mistake I think people make with career change.
Google's dangerous.
Or LinkedIn. Go and speak to people. Because the people out there in the jobs, in the areas that, even if you've just got this tiny bit of curiosity at the beginning, they're going to be the ones who are going to be able to tell you what it's like working in that career and what skills they're using, what they're doing every day, how much they earn, what you need to do to move into that career if you wanted to. And it can feel quite intimidating for people, I think, to do that to start with. And that's a skill that I really build up on with people, of how to reach out and connect with people and to see the value in doing that. And I think it takes a bit of practice and a bit of people coming back and saying, yes, I'm happy to have a really general chat like that for people to actually see the value of it. So the next tip that links to that would be not to be looking for a job when you're first looking at career change, just to be looking at following that curiosity, looking for people that you're interested to speak to so that you can learn more. I sort of mentioned before that people tend to try and change career based on the data that's in their head, and that doesn't work. That's a mistake people make. This is doing the opposite. This is data gathering. This is going, okay, I'm just going to go out there. I'm going to learn more about the world. And in doing that, you're going to learn more about you. Because, as Jay was mentioning, you're going to listen out through all those things that are going to be important, and it's going to help you to refine, okay, it's really important to me that there's air conditioning or that the culture is in this particular way, because you'll hear other people explaining that. And you'll also learn a huge amount about the careers that are out there, the job titles you've never heard of, the things you didn't know exist, and the nuance of what it would actually be like to do them as well. So getting out there is a really important part of career change. What about you, Jane? Have you got some different tips to add to the mix?
Yeah. Well, I absolutely agree. It's, expanding your professional network, talking to people, getting the information that you need so you know what it's like in a day in the life of whatever it might be. I would add that career clarity is a really important part of your exploration, because you can explore externally, which is really important for the actual jobs that might be out there, but also internally. Think about what are the values that drive you, and the core driving values. I'd say list all the values that are important to you, and then rank them in order of importance too. So you know what the top 3 to 5 are that are not negotiable, and you must be able to fulfill them somehow in your life, professionally or personally. And then identify what your current skills are, your preferred skills. So it's important to know what you enjoy doing and also what you're good at. So sometimes we're very good at something, but we hate it. You know, I mean, I can analyze and do detailed work, but I don't like it. So if I do too much detailed work, I tend to go a little bit stir crazy. So think about, if I have a high competence level in something, how high is my enjoyment of that as well? So if you have high enjoyment and high competence, then that's a sweet spot. And that's probably where you will be able to express a little more passionately what it is that you can do, because you're good at it and you love it so much. And then your personal preferences, what motivates you about the work environment, about the people, about the job function, about the industry, about the flexibility, or whatever it might be, because there are lots of different aspects of your job. And it could be that you're in a good industry, but you're feeling a bit disgruntled about your job function. So would a change of job function mean, oh, I can stay within this company or within this industry? So identify what really motivates you about your current role and what demotivates you, so you know what you're tolerating at the moment. Sometimes we tolerate stuff and it's okay. Other times we tolerate things and it ends up becoming so frustrating as well. And then you think, oh, I've got to make a change. And that's where the push factor comes. But once you've identified who you are, what really makes you tick, then think about, ultimately, what sort of legacy would you like to leave as a result of you being on this earth? Who are you? You know, how do you want to be remembered as well? And one of the things I like people to do is to reverse engineer their careers a bit. So you think at the end of your days, say you're 102 or 95, or whenever you're ready to say sayonara, when you're ready to say goodbye, what needs to have happened in your life and career for you to say, I had a really good life and I can actually go now and I feel there are no regrets. So I think live with no regrets is something to consider as well. So many things to think about, aren't there, Jo?
Yes, definitely. And so many things to work through, and worries that can come up in the process. I think it's a complicated thing, career change, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. And Daniel's just told us that he's from Maitland, Florida. I wonder how things are going in Florida. You have an election coming up soon. It's going to be very interesting. And thank you, Syed, for saying good learning. Now, if you happen to have any questions, please feel free to ask. We don't have any questions at the moment, although there are people listening in. You know what I've noticed, actually, Jo, is looking on my phone app, the session is not turning up, but obviously people are watching it. So maybe there's something on my phone. So I hope that there isn't a glitch, but obviously everyone who is here is able to see us. So if you do have any questions, feel free to ask, and you can ask while we're live now, or if you're watching the replay, you can ask the questions, and of course we will go back into the comments and respond as well, because I wonder, what are the biggest barriers that others may be facing as well? I mean, is anyone who's watching now, have you made a career change, or are you thinking about making a career change? What's worked for you and what hasn't worked for you? Because we'd really love to hear. But let me ask you, Jo, when you made that first change, when you arrived here in Sydney, what do you think was the hardest thing for you before you made your decision?
Oh, gosh, it's a long time ago now.
It was 15 years ago.
Yes. I think it was the leap of faith of sort of going, is this going to be the right thing to do? And there's always an element of that to career change. But the more you can be informed, as you were saying about you and I was saying about the world out there, Jane, and bringing those two things together, I think that's the important part, which you really helped me to do. I think it was just knowing, okay, I've just got to give this a go and see what happens. But I was so motivated I'd had this sort of epiphany in a focus group. Oh, I realized I've got to do something that means more than what are people putting on their wine bottles that I was getting market research. That I was so driven. I think, as you said, that why, that pull factor was really there for me. That just kept me going. Okay, I've got to give something else a try. I think it was really great that the first job I landed in the not-for-profit world was a 6-month contract. And so it was perfect to give me a chance to really get some experience and try it out and see whether moving into something a bit different was going to work for me. And that really then led me forwards in that career, which was wonderful.
Yeah, but going into the not-for-profit sector, which is where you've got extensive experience because you worked for Clean Up Australia, and then you worked for Canteen, which is such an amazing, amazing charity, and then you worked for Caritas, and you were traveling all over the world on amazing programs. You must read Jo's stories. I've got parts 1, 2, 3, and 4 of Jo's career change stories on my website, which is, where is it? Hang on, I'll just pop up here. There on janejacksoncoach.com, you'll find the blog, and you'll be able to find that on the website. And also the story is on Jo's website, which is here at Jo Green Coaching. All right, so you can go to both of those websites and you'll find all about Jo, which will be wonderful. And I'll leave your website up there for a little while. But getting into the not-for-profit sector, it's not easy, is it? What would you say is
Yeah, I think it depends. I think it's one of those things that maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I think you have to go and explore it. And as you said, building up those relationships is such an important part of it. And I think for me, getting that first contract really was the kind of into the space, and being open to the different areas that I sort of worked at. Lots of people get into the not-for-profit space because they volunteer first with an organization. I've met lots of people who were doing that and found a way to sort of learn more about the organization and get a bit of an in that way. I think it depends on the parts. There's some parts of the not-for-profit sector that I experienced where there were many people trying to get roles in that area, and others where it wasn't quite so the case, just because of the type of work that was happening. So I think, if there's something people are looking at, then go and find out. Don't kind of assume it's going to be hard until you've gone and checked, because things might not be as you expect.
And the more people you meet and the wider the network base you build in a certain area, the more advice you'll gain as well, which will make it much easier. Now here's an interesting question from Sue. Thank you, Sue. Apart from barriers, why do you think people don't take that first step? I know what I would say.
I'd say probably how to phrase it differently than barriers, if you see what I mean, because I'd lump it all in together in that first one. If it probably is the fears or the lack of knowledge, or it can be thinking, I've got all these skills and experience, how do I navigate the job market? That can feel like a really tricky part of it. So even if they know what career they want to make, career change they want to make, the world of career is built like a ladder. It's built for going upwards. That's what you do when you apply for your next job. You're probably applying for something that's a bit more senior, but changing career is moving sideways. And so actually, even how do you navigate the job market as a career changer can feel really challenging. Because if you go to a recruitment consultant and say, hey, this is, here's my background, this is what I've been doing, but I want to do this instead, they can find that really challenging. Some are brilliant. I don't want to say they're all terrible at doing this, but some find it really challenging and just say, here's 5 jobs doing what you're doing already. And if you go on Seek, it can feel really hard. This is the job description. This is your CV. They look very different when you're changing career. And it's robots sometimes looking at it now, isn't it? Not people. And so it can feel really hard of how are you going to prove that I do have the skills and experience, that I could work in this new area. And navigating that part of the career change can be another bit where people can really find it tricky. What do you think, Jane?
Yeah, I think, sometimes people don't take that first step, Sue, is because of complacency, I reckon, because better the devil you know than the devil you don't, some people may think. And you may be feeling a little bit disgruntled or dissatisfied, but you think, oh, it's okay, a job's a job, I'll just stay here anyway. And then the years go by and you're still in the same place and you're still disgruntled. I think that's why people don't take that first step until there's a redundancy. And I've coached people who say, I didn't want the redundancy, but I'm glad to be out of there because I was so unhappy. And I'd say, well, why didn't you leave originally? And it's some people say I was waiting for a package, a redundancy package. But for others, it's like, it was kind of okay, but I just wasn't happy. And so the redundancy ends up being a blessing in disguise. So I think it's, really take stock about where you're at the moment on a scale of 0 to 10. How happy are you? How happy do you want to be? Some people don't mind not being very happy. Others, are seeking, that happiness as well. So think about that level of complacency, I reckon. Thank you. Good question. Here's another question from, it says a LinkedIn user, so I don't know who it's from. It says, career, is it a role mindset or something else? I ask because the way I work is similar, but the context may be different. I'm not sure if I understand the question. Do you, Jo?
No.
Maybe it's something to do with when you're in a role, your mindset is similar to how other people think. I'm thinking about when I was in recruitment. It was very much a sales mentality. It was very competitive. Whereas now I'm coaching, it's very collaborative and warm and fuzzy, and it's all helping people. And recruitment, it really is making a placement. Many recruiters are on a commission, like a high commission and a low base, and so it's very important to make that placement. And so it was very competitive, and so being with other people who were very sales driven would have been good. I'm just not heavily sales driven. So it wasn't the right environment for me. So I didn't have the right mindset to enjoy that particular role. I wonder if that's perhaps what you mean. Let me see. There's somebody else here with a question that says, or a comment really. I have a squiggly career. What's your squiggly career? I'd love to know.
I think I have a squiggly career path. A few zigs and zags along the way.
Me too. I think many people do have squiggly careers. You know how squiggly my career was? My first role was as I shouldn't say it, trolley dolly, but I think it's quite funny. I was a stewardess, a flight attendant, way back when, 100 years ago, with Korean Airlines. And then I realized, I get airsick, so it's not a very good choice. Oh, that's very important. They didn't ask me, do I get airsick in the interviews. And so I got through, and then I had to take Dramamine, before and after, before we were landing and before every flight. It's quite funny. But then I went to uni, and then I ended up becoming a graphic designer. Then I got into public relations and was a PR executive. And then I got into fitness and was a fitness trainer and ended up being sponsored by Nike. To promote total body conditioning. Then I set up my own corporate training business and went back to corporate. And then I suddenly got this opportunity to choreograph this Broadway style show in Singapore. And so, then I was a dancer, and then I was a backup dancer for a group called Tina and the Turners, not Tina Turner. It was like a review group. And so I was a backup dancer while still doing the corporate training. And then this opportunity to interview for a career coach role came up, and I had no idea what a career coach was. So talk about squiggly. I'd love to hear about anybody's squiggly careers.
I haven't looked up the stats in a while, but I remember a while ago finding some research that said the average person has 5 different careers. So if you've got a squiggly career, I think you're probably on the right step that most people do these days. I mean, my parents didn't. Back then, it used to be pretty linear that people would stick in something. But there's lots of positives, I think, to having a squiggly career. You've experienced a lot, you've seen a lot, you've got lots of different things to bring to whatever role you're in.
Yeah, it's all part of the rich tapestry of life, isn't it? Exactly. And something interesting. Someone asked me the other day, should they take away all of their early experiences, because people are so worried about ageism in the workplace? And I said, well, in your resume, just keep in what's relevant for the role. But on LinkedIn, as I say, the rich tapestry of life, why hide who you are and what you've been? I go back to the 1970s. I'm that old, and I don't care if someone thinks I'm too old. That's not my problem. It's their problem, right? So I think, embrace who you are and what you've done and what you've learned, as long as it's something that is relevant to what you're going to be doing next. And I think what I've included, it's all, part of transition, which is good. This is another comment from Sue here. Devil, definitely agree with that. Too comfortable, but not uncomfortable enough.
Oh, I love that. Good way of putting it.
That's
something tends to be tips over into the uncomfortable, I think, is what tends to happen for people.
Yeah. Here's a nice question from Dale. Do you both work with people on identifying transferable and soft skills that will work across industries? The answer is yes, we both do this.
Yes.
Yeah, it's part of the process, and I think any career coach who really cares about what you're going to do next is going to get inside you, and to find out exactly what it is that you have to offer, and then with the experience that Joe has in multiple industries, and myself as well, it's all about what is needed in different industries and different roles and different job functions, and what is it that you can do as well. So if you're interested in doing this, let me just show you. Go to Joe's website, joegreencoaching.com, and have a look at all of the services that Joe can provide, because she's a wonderful, wonderful coach with amazing experience. Or if you want an oldie, you can come to my website, janejacksoncoach.com. I'm so long in the tooth, honestly. If you want to work with a dinosaur, then you can work with me. If you want to work with just this bright spark who's amazing, with fantastic experience, then go to Joe. All right, so there you go. You can choose whatever you want. And I want to direct you to somewhere. If you go here, janejacksoncoach.com/podcast, and you type in Joe Green, you will get to listen to an interview that Joe and I did in 2017. It's episode 105. Wow. 2017, when you made, I think it was your second change.
It must have been into the not-for-profit space.
No, it was when you started coaching.
Oh, it was when I started coaching. Right. Of course it was. Yes. It would have been, yes.
Yeah,
2017. Started coaching. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so you had your 3 transitions within not-for-profit, amazing career, and that's when you discovered coaching. And it's such an interesting story. So go and look for episode 105 of your career podcast, because that would be amazing. Okay, and so let me see, are there any other questions? Oh, thank you. Oh, I love Sue. Guru, not a dinosaur.
Nice.
I think if I was to come back as a dinosaur, what would I be? A triceratops? Maybe a pterodactyl, because you can soar a little bit.
Absolutely. You said you got a grandson, Jane, because you're dinosaurs.
Oh, so funny. Okay, so hang on. There's LinkedIn user says, Darren, hello, Darren. You don't know why it doesn't show you. I think your privacy settings has made you invisible to us. So you might want to just change your privacy settings, which you'll find underneath your picture icon on the top right-hand corner of LinkedIn. That answer kind of works. Squiggly is also my comment. Yes. Okay. Well, you see, so many of us have got squiggly careers. So here, Jane and Joe, I'm undergoing a career change into customer success, but majority of the roles that I have applied for and received a response screen call, often feedback is I have no prior experience, even though I have relevant transferable skills. That's the problem, isn't it? With hiring, people should hire for potential. If you've got someone who's already been there, done that, and they're going for the same thing, there's no challenge, there's no stretch, right? But if you're making a change into customer success, you've got relevant transferable skills, you need to start talking to people who are in customer success. I would suggest go onto LinkedIn and then type in the search customer success, different roles, different permutations, and see if you can connect with those who are in that role at the moment, and have some informational interviews, like network with them to find out exactly what does it take to be successful in that role? How did they do it? And have a look on their career path as well, because you'll find that a lot of people get into customer success, not because they started out, customer success, there's no such career that you think about when you're in your high school years, I want to be a customer success manager. Okay. It tends to happen as you progress in your career as well. And there are a lot of, on LinkedIn, there are a lot of customer success professionals who are very talented. You look under LinkedIn as a company, and then customer success, and you'll find a lot of talented customer success professionals that you can probably connect with, and also pick their brains a little bit on how did you make that career change. That would be helpful. What would you recommend, Joe?
Yeah, I just add to that, Jane. I think exactly what I was thinking, that have some conversations with people in the industry, not looking for a job, just looking to have a chat with them to understand more about the industry, what's going on in it at the moment, more about exactly the types of roles you'd like to apply for, and just to build up your network in that space. Really focusing on just finding out more information and building up the network. And then in those conversations, say to people, okay, this is what I really, really want to do. These are the skills that I've got. What do you suggest that I do? Really ask for their advice. Ask for if there's ways that you can get involved that could show that you're really interested in it. So maybe there's a conference you could go to. Maybe there's a project that they're working on that you could give them a bit of free help on to show that you've given it a try and you've actually got some experience in that. And through doing those types of things and your sort of face and your voice and your name being around all that kind of stuff, quite often job opportunities and contacts and things like that come from those conversations. And so it might not be that you end up getting a role in customer success from finding a job on LinkedIn or Seek. It's from the conversations that you have purely just by going and spending more time in that area and seeing what you can learn and how you can help people in that space first so that you can move into it.
Yeah, fantastic suggestions. Also, think of your career as a matrix. It's not really a ladder. If you're targeting customer success, have a look at the job descriptions and of various job ads for customer success professionals and see the skills that they're looking for, and then think, okay, where are the gaps? And maybe I can move into this direction that will get me closer to that particular role. So it might not be the next step that you take. It might be the next 1 or 2 steps for you to get to where you really want to be. So if you plan your strategy effectively, then ultimately you'll be able to reach where it is that you want to go to. It might mean that you need an additional certification or qualification, but find out from that network first, people who are actually doing it, because they'll be able to tell you whether it's really needed or not as well. So that's a really good question. Now, Joe, we're coming up to our time now. And so what I want to do is to let you know that Joe Green Coaching, okay, great stuff. Lots of interesting blog posts and everything in there. JoeGreenCoaching.com if you want to find out more about Joe. Also, connect with Joe on LinkedIn too. Just look for Joe Green Career Coach, you'll find her. And then you can have a look for, I'm not going to call myself a dinosaur, I'll call myself a triceratops from now on. Okay. Have a look on my website, JaneJacksonCoach.com. I've got a number of free resources there that you can just click and take. One is a free branding webinar, 3 secrets to personal branding for career success. Another one is a career quiz that you can take to see where the gaps are when you're actually looking for a job and what you might be doing right or wrong. Okay, and there's a goals calendar that you can download that will be quite helpful too, to help you stay on track, because setting your SMART goals is good, but you also need an action plan. So there's an action plan template that will be helpful there too. Okay, so remember, JoeGreenCoaching.com, connect with Joe, and you can go to my website and connect with me on LinkedIn too, okay? You can either just follow or you can request to connect. Having a personalized note is always better than just clicking connect, connect, connect. Wouldn't you agree, Joe?
Absolutely.
Oh, here's a good suggestion from Sue as well. Thank you, Sue. Explore micro-credentials from MOOC.org. Okay, because you don't want to spend a fortune unless you really know what it is that you're going to do. So taking mini certifications just to see if you will enjoy this new direction and using those new skills is a great idea. So thank you, Sue. That's fabulous. And here we go, another, Darren Wu again. Thank you, Darren. Really appreciate it. And so anyway, anyone who's watching the replay, then please do connect with us. If you've got questions, pop them in the chat or pop them in the comment section, and Joe and I will go back and we'll respond to any additional questions that are there as well. And so it's been an absolute pleasure. Parting thoughts, Joe?
Yes, thank you everyone for the questions and the wonderful thoughts. It's great to chat to you, Jane, and think of things in some different ways. I'm going to listen back because I think there's some really great takeaways for me to think about career change a bit differently, which is so wonderful to have a chance to do that. So thank you.
No, well, I just love you. You have this fabulous, fresh approach and very practical approach, which is wonderful. And then I just waffle on a lot. I'm always up for
Enjoy your
I'm
waffle
always
cake.
up for a chat, and I love talking about careers. And I think that for me, it's been just such an honor that we can do this together. And I think we should do it again. We might make it a regular thing. If
Great.
anybody wants this to be a regular thing, ask Jane and Joe anything, then maybe we'll do it.
Yeah.
And I see
Great.
Jenny
That's so
Simmons is there too. Yeah, thank you, Jenny, for joining us. Thank you, Robin, for joining us. Thank you, Dale, and Darren, Sue, and everybody else who is here. So take care, everyone, and we will see you on a next LinkedIn Live. And I'll end our stream now. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.